The housing market is flashing red. Adjustable rate mortgages, the kind that helped blow up the economy in 2008, are now being used at the highest rate in over 2 years.
The housing market is showing major cracks of a huge downside brewing. Homes are sitting on the market for longer, and reports came out and said there are 500,000 more sellers than buyers. Stay until the end of this video to see more of the report and how to better prepare. Now, let's jump right into it. And here's a quick video from Fox that goes more into the details about the housing market.
The housing market is flashing red. Adjustable rate mortgages, the kind that helped blow up the economy in 2008, are now being used at the highest rate in over 2 years. Why? Well, mortgage rates just spiked again, up 20 basis points in a week. New single-family homes for sale in the U.S. surging to 500,000 in February, reaching the highest since November of 2007. But even with more homes for sale, buyers are pulling back. Spring is supposed to be real estate's boom season, but Anthony Pompliano, you say that we have a crisis on our hands. We need to treat it like one. What do you think the path forward is?
There's 4 data points that really show this. The median asking home price is up 6% to $424,000. That's $50,000 increase since the start of the year. The median sale price in America is up 3% to $383,000. But I think even more importantly, the typical home buyer monthly mortgage payment is up 5% year over year to $2,800 per month. And so if you think about those numbers, basically what you have is you have homes becoming more expensive. You have debt becoming more expensive. We're not building enough homes. And so naturally you have this squeeze that's occurring. But people also forget at that same time you have real wages falling. And so people basically can't figure out how to buy a home or keep up with what is ultimately the real inflation that they're experiencing. And so the reason why I say it's a national emergency is because the federal government really has to step in here. And if you go and you look at the housing problem, we can't build houses in America, not because of the federal government. It's because we're being held hostage by local city councils that are basically, parading around or masquerading around as politicians. But at the end of the day, what do they know about housing zoning? What do they know about housing rules?
What do you mean when you say you want the government to get into it?
I think that the federal government
made a mess of it.
I think that the federal government should step in and say that we are going to create either some sort of sandbox, some sort of safe zone, or we are going to actually put some sort of guidance out for these city councils. Because what ends up happening is if you want home prices to stop going up so fast, build more housing. But what you can't do is you can't have people who they are not experienced and frankly, they have a lot of times very big conflicts, right? If you go to the local city council, who sits on the city council? Usually people who are real estate developers or are sitting there, they own real estate in the jurisdiction. There's tons of conflicts of interest. And so if you want the housing rules to actually change,
just crooks.
If you want those housing rules to change, what you have to do is you have to create some sort of guidance. And so the local rules that are in place right now are not taking into account the fact that there is a national emergency in terms of housing prices. And so let's have some sort of framework that we can go and actually implement and allow people to build houses in America so that these house prices stop going up.
It's not an emergency to keep home prices propped up, though. I mean, if you want to make housing affordable, it means that prices need to come down. And nobody will admit that the inflated value of the home that you bought, wherever it may be, because literally every home on a coast is, despite the wildly out of control insurance costs, is overvalued. And so you can't tell the American people, well, when you go to sell your house, you might not be able to get a premium for it. Sorry. But there's no emergency there. It's
let
just
the market
high prices and mortgage rates, and you put those all together and we've got a disaster. I think President Trump wants to work on it, but I also want to talk about on the mortgage side how we got here, because over the course of the last 4 years under Joe Biden, the interest rate when he was inaugurated on the 30-year fix was 2.77%. It rose to 6.77% by July 18th of 24. It went back down in September of 24 to 6.08, but we've been bouncing around in these high ranges, making that prohibitive too for quite some time. That was inflation and the Fed.
But it was 7% last week, according to Mortgage Rate Daily.
Oh, no, I'm not denying it's not high.
Because people were dumping U.S. Treasuries. Now, the yields have eased on the 10-year Treasury, thank God. But again, if you create a Treasury crisis and a U.S. debt crisis, that impacts home buyers.
So we've got supply problem, we've got interest rate problem, we've got a big mess. And Donald Trump has made home building and housing a priority through one of his executive orders. But you're right, Anthony, it is a problem at the local level, and that is quite a mess to weed through. But we're going to follow it.
Redfin released an article titled, U.S. housing market nearly has 500,000 more sellers than buyers, which is the most on record, which will likely make home prices fall. There are 34% more sellers in the market than buyers. At no other point in record dating back to 2013 have sellers outnumbered buyers this much. In other words, it's a buyer's market. Redfin expects home prices to drop 1% by the end of the year. As a result, prospective buyers may see their purchasing power increase, and prospective sellers should consider selling sooner rather than later. 31 out of the top 50 metros are buyer's market. The strongest buyer's market is Miami, which is sellers outnumbered buyers roughly 3-1. The strongest sellers market is Newark, and the most balanced is St. Louis. The condos market heavily favors buyers. There are 83% more condo sellers than buyers. By comparison, there are 28% more sellers than buyers in the single-family housing market. There are an estimate of 1.9 million home sellers in the U.S. housing market and an estimate of 1.9 million home buyers. In other words, there are 33.7% more sellers than buyers, 490,000 to be exact. At no point in records dating back to 2013 have sellers outnumbered buyers by this large of a number or percentage. A year ago, sellers outnumbered buyers just by 6.5%, and 2 years ago, buyers outnumber sellers. Now, if you want to go ahead and take a look at this chart, you'll see sellers is at 1.9 million, while buyers is at 1.4 million. And you can see the gap in sellers and buyers in the market. Histories normally show that home prices cool when sellers outnumber buyers. As you can see with this chart here, home prices tend to shift after buyers and sellers balance shift. I backed out of a deal about a month ago because the owner didn't want to negotiate after I found some issues with the property after 3 inspections. The house is still up for sale, and now I've decided to pause my search and wait a little bit simply because the numbers doesn't make any sense. At the time of negotiation, when I ran the numbers, I was at $2,800 a month for a monthly payment, which was super expensive compared to the area where I live. And with interest rate going up, I refuse to, pay $3,300 or $3,500 a month right now. It's exactly what it's looking like. But for a regular single family house. But for buyers out there and for sellers as well, I'll encourage sellers to probably not be as stubborn, sell a little quicker, because the longer you wait, the worse it gets as far as the interest rate, decreasing the price of housing a little bit, taking a toll. And also for buyers, you might want to probably see if you can find a deal, trying to negotiate a little bit more, see if you can buy quicker. Hopefully you can find an owner who's not, as stubborn, or you can probably wait a little bit. So that's the only advice that I would give for people who are looking. But also you got to make your own decision, run your own numbers. I also have this chart here to share with you guys. That you could see it's a Zillow's market heat index. And here are the scores over here from 27 or below. You have a strong buyer's market and so on, and 28 to 44. It's also a buyer's market, 44 to 55. It's a neutral market, and you can see like the colors over here change. A little bit up north, still seller's market. As you go down to Florida, Texas, kind of shifting a little bit. California is still a buyer's market. California, I'll say, is still a seller's market. So you can see this map here. It's a pretty good map to show you what it's actually going on in your area, kind of cover what's going on in the housing market a little bit. So I wanted to share that. I thought it was pretty good. So take a quick look. Maybe you want to pause to see. And over here, this is Nick's Gurley Twitter. As you can see, it says Florida investor bought a home for $550,000 in 2022 and literally just sold it for $391, 28% loss in 3 years. So the market, it's stating that the market is turning over fast. As you can see the description of this home here, and let me move myself out the way. Where they bought it for $391. Well, they sold it for $391, but they originally bought it for $5. And here's another chart I want to show with you guys. As you can see, real home price kind of had 2 spike. The 06-09 spike kind of came right back down on this one, which is kind of pulling back a little bit. So I'm not sure what we get. So I'm not sure what we're gonna get coming in the next few years. But price might stay stagnant or it might dip a little bit. I'm not sure if it's gonna go down that low. It can, but something will have to break, and we don't know if that's gonna happen or not. So if you're on the market for a home, Just see if you could get something that's affordable, something you can pay. And also, if you're a seller, just make sure you trying to sell your home as quickly as you can to avoid any future risk that's near to come. That's it for today, folks. I own an accounting firm and I provide accounting services like bookkeeping to help business owners stay organized and also stay in compliance with the IRS. The link will be below, so please feel free to sign up for a free consultation if you need my services or help. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, and see you next time.